Well, this week I want to talk about textures. I've been on this texture kick lately, and it's been a lot of fun coming up with new and cool things to do with realistic textures. And while there are a number of ways you can create your own textures inside Photoshop, and there's a lot of cool ways to do that using the numerous filters, there's a lot you can do with photographs of textures. And I encourage this in a lot of people. When you're out there in the world and you have your camera, pay attention to the textures out there. There's things on the sidewalks, there's brick buildings, concrete buildings, you got tree barks. There's all kinds of different textures out there that if you just took a quick shot and thought about it for a minute, you could come up with some really cool ideas to use those textures for. For instance, here I have just a simple scratched steel texture right here. Looks good, but now I'm going to use it to create an interesting design element. So what I want to do first is actually take this and I'm going to drag and drop it into my working document. Now obviously it's a lot bigger in size than my working document here, so I'm going to press Command or Control T to invoke the free transform. But if you also press Command or Control 0 on your keyboard, it will expand the document out and show you how big the element is and where the transform handles are, as you can see right here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and scale this down. Now, normally I would probably hold down the Shift key and the Option key to scale it down proportionately to the center. However, in this case, I don't necessarily want to scale it proportionately, but I do want to scale it to the center. So I'm going to hold down my Option key, that would be Alt on a Windows, and just scale this in a little bit. And I want to kind of inset it almost like the background is my border. Kind of like that. Now we'll just press Enter. So let's zoom in here, we'll see what we've got. So we've got the steel texture. What I want to do now is go ahead and create a duplicate of that steel texture. I'm going to drag this to the new layer icon. We've got a new version of it. Go into the Edit menu and go over here to Transform, Flip Horizontal. Again, we're going to invoke the free transform by pressing Command or Control T. And we're going to scale this in a little bit. Again, holding down my Option key and not the Shift key, I'm just going to scale it in just a little bit so it almost has an equal distance around there, around the edges there. And we'll press Enter. So you're seeing we're already getting a difference here, but we're still only using one texture file. It's just that one scratched steel file. But we're going to build this on multiple levels. It's going to look like we've used a whole bunch of different images. So I've got that layer. I want to separate it from the background texture a little bit more, so I'm going to apply a layer style to it. Let's go into the effects icon or the effects menu here and choose Drop Shadow. And it separates it a little bit. I am going to go ahead and put a bevel and emboss on that. And let's make the technique set to chisel hard so we get nice hard carved edge on that steel. I'm going to deactivate global light and position my light pretty much right over my object. And let's increase the depth so we can really define that edge there, as you can see. I'll probably move that angle over a little bit. So it's really defining that edge there. And again, this is a layer style. I can go back in here and modify it anytime I want, if necessary. So I'm going to click OK. I want to put that same bevel on this background, the original background layer we've got here. So over here in the Layers panel, if you simply hold down your Option key or your Alt on a Windows machine and click right on that effects icon and drag it to the target layer, it will automatically copy and paste that layer style. So now we've got the nice bevel on that background layer. Well, moving on, now I want to apply some text. So we're going to go over here and grab our text tool and we'll just type steel, assuming I can spell it correctly. And let's press Command or Control T. I'm going to go ahead and scale this text up. I'm going to holding down my Shift key to keep it proportional. Actually, I'm just going to stretch it vertically just a little bit there. And let's go ahead and center it in my document here. So there we've got the steel lettering. Well, I want to make the lettering itself look like steel, so I'm going to actually create a duplicate of this second texture layer we've got here. So we'll create a duplicate of that, drag it over that text layer in the Layers panel here. You can see there's this, the text layer with the texture above it. We're going to clip that inside there using a clipping group. So if you hold down your Option or Alt key once again, drag between those layers and click, it will mask that text inside of there. Now, we don't see it, it's still blending, but here's a quick trick to make it more visible. If you go over here, select that text layer, go into the Edit menu, go to Transform, Flip Horizontal. Now it's a little bit more visible because we flipped it. The arrangement and the light and dark areas are offset. Well, we don't necessarily need this layer style on this layer because it's clipped inside there. We don't see it anyway. So if you just take that effects icon and drag it to the trash, it will go ahead and delete that layer style. We are, however, going to apply a layer style to the text. And again, as we did a moment ago, I'm going to hold down my Option key and drag and drop this effects icon right to that text layer, and boom, we've got cool beveled text on there. So now I just want to add one more element, and that is the bolts. I want to put 4 bolts on each corner here, just so it looks like the steel plate is bolted to the other one. We'll do that quickly by going into our shape tools here, and we're going to grab the polygon tool. Up here in the options bar, we want to make sure that we are actually just drawing a path shape, not a shape layer or a pixel layer, just a regular path. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 6 sides. Let's go over here. Now, I'm not going to drag it out where I want that bolt to be. I want to actually draw it over here. So it gets a different area of the texture that I'm going to apply over here. I'm going to load that as a selection. I'm going to press Command Enter. Load it as a selection. Let's make sure we're selected on that textured layer. And then simply press Command or Control and J to copy that selected area to its own layer, as you can see right there. Now, the bevel and emboss is a little too intense on this, so if you go in here into the Layers panel, if you hold down your Control key or right-click on the effects icon, if you go down to the bottom, you can see we have Scale Effects. So all it's going to do is just scale down the effects that we've got applied here. I'm going to set this to about, maybe a little bit higher, about 40%. And I could probably even modify the layer style a little bit more by increasing the depth on there. There we go. It looks a little bit better. Maybe I can drag out that shadow if we turn off global light there. And increase the size a little bit. So I think that looks like it might be pretty good. Okay, so now let's take that and drag it over here to the corner. So now let's put one on each corner of the image. So I'm going to hold down my Option key, and you'll see I get a little double arrow there. It means I'm about to drag a duplicate if I drag it down. And just so it doesn't look exactly like the other one, press Command or Control T and just give it a little bit of a rotation. And let's do the same thing. We'll drag another one over here, and we'll put one right there. And again, with both of these, let's give them a slight rotation just so they look different from what we had up there a while ago. You know, we can probably even put one in the center here, I guess. Drag on out. Oh, a few too many there. And again, give it a little bit of a rotation. And there we have a cool steel plate with the lettering and everything, all created from one image or one image texture of steel. And you can just build that and just reapply the layer styles and just build on top of itself to create the ultimate image. Now, I want to do one final thing here. This middle plate here, let's give it a bit of a color so it separates it from everything else. I'm going to press Command or Control U with that layer selected. Click on Colorize, and let's just give it kind of a yellowish color there. You know what I think of when I look at this? I think of Iron Man. That's what's really cool about it. So we give it a little bit of color, and there we have it. Really cool steel text from a real steel image.